2024. It is 6 o'clock, and we are in the San Marcos High School. And this is the last meeting of the 2024 calendar year. So with that said, there are going to be a few changes to the agenda. We'll just move through those as we get to them. And I am at this point going to call our quorum. We have all 7 board members present. Ms. Cantu is joining us on Zoom. Hello, Ms. Cantu.
Hello.
And then I would like to ask the Crockett Elementary School principal, Dr. Hoefs, to come to the podium and to introduce for us the students who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge this evening.
Good evening, board and Dr. Cardona. I am very proud to present Lila and Nora Furstenfeld, who will do the pledges for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now for the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Yay. Great job, y'all. Thank you so much. Enjoy your break.
Thank you, Dr. Hoefs.
You enjoy your break, too. And then we have a public meeting to discuss the district's rating on the state's financial accountability system.
All right. Good evening, board and Dr. Cardona. If you give me a second, let me pull up the presentation. Okay, this evening I will be presenting the first rating for the 23-24 school year. First is our Financial Integrity Rating System of Texas, and this presentation will serve as our public hearing for the first rating. If you would like to also follow along, I believe on page 5 of your board book is the presentation. And there are 3 components. The first will be an overview of the first rating system. The second will be the first rating that San Marcos received from last year. And then we'll open, thirdly, for any public comment for the floor. Our financial system, the primary goal of the management system of Texas is to examine each district's financial performance because of the importance of using financial resources efficiently. Use of the system is intended to achieve quality performance in the financial management of school districts and to serve as an early warning of any decreasing quality management. So there are several indicators. However, the first 5 are crucial indicators. I kind of have noted here that the 1 through 6, 17 through 20, 16, 17, 20, and 21 are, those are pass-fail. And then you have some other indicators that are on a scale of 1 to 10. And finally, you have a few indicators that are on a scale of 1 to 5. So if you look at the first 5, these are our crucial indicators. These truly represent the day-to-day work of our business and finance team and their dedication to the excellence in the service for the district. On all these indicators, they have a pass or fail, and we did meet all those indicators. Indicators 6 through 10, again, these indicators are scored on a 1 through 10 rating, and with 10 was not scored this year, but indicators 6 through 9, we did meet 10 out of 10 on all of those. Indicators 11 through 15, those indicators, again, are also scored on a 1 to 10 rating, and on those, each of those we did score the maximum rating of 10, indicators 11 through 15. And on indicators 16 through 21, so some of these were ceilings met, and it's a yes or no, and indicator 18 was a 1 to 10 scale, and indicator 19 was a 1 to 5 scale. So as you can see on each of those indicators, we either met ceiling or we scored the maximum rating on each of those. And so for the school year, we did have a superior achievement score of 100. And there's actually an improvement from the previous year. We just fell short of a 98, but we had a perfect score this year. So I think that's a lot of dedication to the business and finance team and the work that they do with the schools each and every day. There are a few disclosures that are part of the rating, and those, as you can see, are that we will provide a copy of the superintendent's employment contract. There's a summary of any reimbursements to the superintendent and each board member for expenses. There's also a summary schedule listing any amount paid to the superintendent by any entities or professional consulting or other services. And there's also a summary of each board member gifts that would exceed $250 in value. And finally, a summary schedule of the dollar amount of each board member was paid for business transactions for the district. This was our notice that was sent out as requirement to we posted in our our daily record. And we wanted to provide the opportunity if there was any public comment or questions regarding our school rating. Okay. Any questions from the board? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alvarez, and thank you to our finance and business team for their extraordinary work. We appreciate it. Next up, we have public forum, and we have 3 people signed up to speak tonight. First up is Haley Aguilar.
Okay. Good evening, board members and Dr. Cardona. My name is Haley Aguilar, and I am the current president of the Youth Task Force. I speak to you today concerning item 11A.1 on your agenda. I believe offering support and funding for these programs will only grow youth involvement in the community. I would like to share why I think you should support and fund programs for youth development in our community by sharing how youth services and the Core 4 partnership have changed my life. I joined the Youth Task Force with little skills in public speaking, communication, decision-making, leadership roles, and networking. Our annual events, such as the youth conference, activities that we plan, and our just like regular meetings, much like this one, have helped me interact with other people in the community who aren't just at the high school. I've made so many genuine connections and friendships by being a part of this program, as well as learn many skills for my future career. I hope tonight I've influenced your vote to support youth services and the Core 4. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Haley. And then we're going to hear from Sophia Robertson, please.
A little bit of a pipsqueak. Good evening. I'm Sophia Robertson. I'm also here to speak on item 11 in support of continuing funding of the Core 4 partnership. I'm the current vice president of the San Marcos Youth Task Force, which is a youth-led program that's funded by the Core 4 and housed under community action. And I've been a member for 3 years. During that time, the Youth Task Force has given me countless opportunities to serve my community, to learn, and to grow. I entered the task force as someone with underdeveloped organizational skills, a fear of public speaking, and little impact on the San Marcos community. By getting involved with organizing our many community events throughout the year, including our annual youth conference, I've gained valuable experience in collaboration and learned how to hold myself and others accountable when working toward a common goal. Holding leadership positions within the task force, with support from my fellow members and our advisor, Cristal Lopez, has led me to become leagues more comfortable with speaking in front of others. Finally, participation in volunteer and community events through the task force has allowed me to serve and connect with my fellow community members and positively impact fellow youth in San Marcos. In short, the San Marcos Youth Task Force, with the Core 4 and community action by extension, has been a guiding force in my development as a leader, a community member, and a young woman. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sophia. And last of all, we have Kaiten Raymond, please.
Good evening. I'm Katin Raymond. I'm a senior here at the high school, and I'm speaking in support of item 11 in funding youth services. Throughout all 4 years here at the high school, I have been a member of the youth task force, and I've served as an officer for 3 of those. The youth task force has impacted my life in countless ways. It's provided me with opportunities to actively participate and give back to my community at levels I did not think I'd ever get to do, while also helping me build a network and create meaningful bonds that I will continue to cherish even after my time in the task force. If not for the task force, I would not have even thought about being here and speaking to you all, because I used to be very shy and unwilling to speak to those I was not familiar with, but now I'm here, and though nervous, I'm here and I'm ready to advocate for the things I feel are important. My time has allowed me opportunities to open up and become more confident in myself, and I believe other youth deserve the same opportunity as me.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. You did a great job, and we really appreciate hearing from you. I'm going to say now we're going to invite Ms. Lopez up during the superintendent's report to give her report on the task force. But then when we come to the action item, I'm actually going to move that we postpone this item for the vote until January. The district is starting our budgeting process in the beginning of January, and because we need to look at the whole budget in its entirety, I'm going to make the recommendation that we postpone the action on this item until January, after we've had our first meeting on the budget on January 6th. So we really appreciate it. You're doing a great job, good work, and thanks, girls, for coming and speaking to us.
They're out already. Look at them.
Now, we are agendized to move into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.129, and 551.076. But I've spoken to Dr. Cardona, and we do not have anything that we need to discuss in closed session. I think we all received today a request to extend the deadline for negotiations on the bid that was made toward us. And I don't know if we need to vote on that, or do we need to take a vote? Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we extend that deadline till the next school board meeting.
I'll second.
Motion made, seconded by Ms. Lopez. Any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Thank you. We will move that discussion until January. And now, Dr. Cardona, please take it away.
Madam President, members of the board, good evening. Don't have much other than, Crystal, if you wanted to come up, we thought this would be a good opportunity for you to talk about the work that you're doing as we move into the budget season. And really the only message I have is for everybody in a few days to get some rest, disconnect from your cell phone devices, step away, spend time with family. You've earned this time off, like just time to disconnect, refresh, and get ready for second semester. So Crystal,
there we go. Hello, good evening. My name is Cristal Lopez. I'm the Youth Service Director. You had the opportunity to hear from our current 4 SMCISD students who are currently members of our Youth Task Force. I'm a little emotional to hear them speak. To see the growth that our students have had these last 3 years, it's really, really impactful to see the work of the Core 4, and it's nice to see it when it's a person and you kind of see those things in action, right? We read the reports, I know y'all get them, our annual reports and our monthly reports, but in terms of what does that look like on the ground, that's what it looks like. These students have an opportunity to engage with their peers in the community outside of the district, and they get to learn and grow and interact with other YACs. So our youth task force is one of the very few that are on the I-35 corridor. We also participate in the Texas Municipal League, and so some cities who do have the opportunity have what they called a youth advisory council, a youth advisory board, and so our task force fulfills that role for San Marcos, and so they get to participate and interact and meet other YACs around the state. And so it's a really amazing opportunity to see how the Core 4, because of our innovation and the work that we're doing here locally, really impacts the landscape of our youth task force, where it's more beyond just the city, it's our county, it's private school, public school, private school students, all interacting, collectively working for the good of youth and young adults in our community. And so that's really what I'm passionate about in terms of the work that we're doing with the Youth Task Force specifically. But in general, the Core 4 partnership has several initiatives that we've worked on the last 4 years. I'm really, really happy with the work of the San Marcos, Texas Mental Health Coalition. This past year, I want to say collectively we've trained over 1,000 community members, district personnel in youth mental health first aid, for public safety, and then adult mental health first aid. And so when we talk about mental health in our community, it's not just specific to any one person. It can affect anyone, regardless of background, socioeconomic status. And so the coalition has really prioritized education and awareness, trying to remove the stigma that comes with mental health, right, and having those discussions. And so I really am thankful and proud of the work that the Core 4 has done collectively with our community partners, working with our local mental health authority, working with the county, and providing those trainings at no cost to remove barriers to those accessing that training. One of our other initiatives is our Youth Coalition, where we partnered with Texas Youth Action Network. I received training in positive youth development, and that is the philosophy and structure that I am using to build out the Core 4 partnership. And really all that means is that youth should be engaged in the process, right? We heard from our students earlier today. When we talk about the work of the Core 4, I always bring back those initiatives to our Youth Task Force. We present the ideas, and we want to get them involved in that process, right? This is their community, they're our future. The more comfortable they feel engaging, it's really exciting to see them have those opportunities to learn and to be part of the Core 4 partnership and to provide guidance and feedback on the work that we're doing in the community. And so through that youth coalition and the partnership with Texas Youth Action Network, we were able to complete a community needs assessment last fall. And so that allowed us to get some updated data on sense of belonging, mental health, and access to basic needs, college and career readiness. And this allowed us to have some data points to help steer where we're going in the future. Again, as we all know, the Core 4 partnership is grounded in the 2013 Youth Master Plan. It's been a while since 2013, so I think it was time that we get some updated information and data from our community. And what was exciting about that survey is that it included all of our partners, all of the Core 4 entities, and we were able to not just survey our youth and young adults, but it also went out to parents and key stakeholders to kind of see where are those gaps, where should we be focusing our efforts in terms of education, awareness, programming, and services. And the key takeaways from that survey for us is that the youth really are asking for the same things parents and stakeholders are asking for, but in a different way, right? They don't necessarily want to come to a meeting, see a PowerPoint on mental health, but they do want those preventative activities, right? Where are there places that are safe, where they can gather? What are things that are geared towards our young people, our teens and tweens, and our young adults, right? What are the things that are offered to them in the community outside of our district, right? Like how are we as a community wrapping our arms around them to support them to become very active and healthy adults in our community? So we're excited about that. We've been working on those efforts to really focus on what types of events we should have. Some exciting partnerships that came out of that. We are currently, the Youth Task Force is partnered with HCWC to host activities during their monthly meetings where they're learning about consent, safety, healthy relationships, all of these things that they're asking for, but in fun ways. Like they got to do an activity, we had a painting with compassion event. And so again, it's really taking all of the data points when we're saying there's a need for mental health education, what does that look like in action when we're wanting to engage youth? And if we engage youth and allow them to be part of the process and have a say on how we approach that, they're more likely to be involved and to enjoy it and to be willing to come up here and speak, right, and advocate for the things that they're interested in. So those are a few of the things that we've been working on and the things that I would consider highlights and big wins for us for the Core 4 partnership. And I really hope that we're able to continue the work and to really expand the services that we're doing. I'm happy to answer any questions. I could speak forever on this topic, and I'm happy to do so. I know you have several reports that are linked in the packet that you received. So whether you have a question now or later, I'm also happy to have any conversations or address any of those.
Thank you so much. I think we'll hold budget questions until January after we've looked at it in context. But if anybody has programming questions, now is a good time to ask Ms. Lopez. Awesome. Thank you so much. Keep up
Thank
the
you
great
so
work.
much.
Thank you.
All right, moving into our academic reports. We're starting off with the PSAT, SAT update.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Cardona. My name is Lacey Matiaski, Director of Secondary CNI. I'm joined by our high school associate principal, Eileen Gross, and we will be sharing our PSAT and SAT data from this fall. Mrs. Gross is going to start us off with some SAT numbers for you.
Good evening, happy to be here. Just wanted to first start off a little bit about SAT. I don't know if we can go to the next slide. So our SAT, just for you to know, we have school day SAT. All of our juniors and seniors take this SAT during the school day. October 23rd this year was when those students took the test. House Bill 3, starting in 2019-2020 school year, funded SAT for all students at least once during their high school year, so that's the reason why we do that. Here are our current scores from this fall of 2024. As you can see, as a district, our mean score was 898 compared to our state at 920. And we are falling short of our, for the United States at 973. The next two slides go into some detail regarding the reading and writing scores for SAT, and then the math scores for SAT. We are slightly falling behind the state with both those scores. If you can go to the next slide, thank you. And here's our math at 437. Next slide. Historically, as you can see, for the past 3 years since fall of 2022 that we pulled our data, we have been decreasing our mean score for our students overall of 13 points over the past 3 years. We're looking at making some adjustments in our teaching to address those, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Next up is going to be our NMSQT, which is National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, or a PSAT, which is taken at the 11th grade level. So for our National Merit Qualifying Test, our average score was 827. And again, this is the PSAT test compared to the SAT that I just spoke about. We are behind the state in the U.S. as well for both those, for that test, as well as the reading and writing portion of it and the math portion of it. I wanted to talk very quickly about some of the things that we're going to do here at the high school in order to address those. Some of the things that we should do, especially for National Merit Qualifying Test, is to identify our top 25%, 20 or 25% of our PSAT 10th grade testers and help them through solid tier 1 instruction in the classroom, through SAT vocabulary, use of our advisory time in order to get them the test taking strategies that they need in order to be successful on their SAT tests, and hopefully get some scholarships through National Merit test.
All right, so I'm going to share some data on PSAT 8 and 9. So this test is obviously administered to our 8th and 9th graders, again in October with the rest of our testers. Of all of the SAT suite of assessments, this is considered the one to offer a baseline around college and career readiness among our 8th and 9th graders. And then with those subsequent tests, you kind of can see how they're progressing toward mastery of those skills. It can also indicate a readiness for AP courses in their early high school years. For example, AP Human Geography in the 9th grade. This data is great to help identify those students who may indicate some readiness. The next slide shows, we get into some reading and writing scores, which you'll see there. And then because we give this at both 8th and 9th grade, we actually have data at the campus level. So on this next slide, you'll see our reading and writing scores. And again, this is from this last October. You'll see our district score at the top, and then at the bottom, broken out between our 2 middle schools and our high school. And then we have our math scores overall in comparison to the state, public schools only, state schools, etc. And on the next slide, you'll see it by campus. We did include a little historical data here, though you'll notice fall of 23, we did not administer this test last fall, so that's why you see that gap there. Relatively steady numbers, a decline of 10-ish points. So the work, particularly at our middle schools, when we look at the strands within this PSAT test that our students, I'll just offer one example, that our students struggle with in the reading portion is around like the use of transitional phrases for a variety of purposes. Well, that directly correlates, that skill on the STAR test is under the revising and editing umbrella, where we're seeing similarly not as great scores as we would like. So we've pushed in to make sure that our teachers are understanding how to teach, and again, this is just an example, revising and editing embedded in our RLA practices. Make sure it's embedded and overlaid with every text they read. So we are really, like Mrs. Gross mentioned, focusing on that tier 1 instruction on these skills with the hopes of seeing success no matter what assessment assesses them. We also want to make sure that as we do look at our data, we've gotten really good at looking at our STAR data and our local assessments. We want to start making sure our teachers are digging into this data and seeing, though they provide the reports, it's pretty simple, seeing that correlation between the standards on a PSAT or SAT and how they correlate to the standards on STAR and how tier 1 instruction would address all. All right, so that is our PSAT and SAT update. Thank you.
Yes, questions? I have, go ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Halsey. I don't have a question per se. I will say to me, it looks like an opportunity. Obviously, we are behind statewide averages, but we're not far behind statewide averages. And so I know for several years there's been informal conversations of trying to build something into the high school calendar or offering some type of support for those students who, are practicing to take the SAT, ACT. Anecdotally, I can speak to like my experience where one, knowing that I could take it multiple times, and if I took it multiple times, I probably did better. I was just kind of a one and done student. So even just educating students on that opportunity in and of itself. But if there was any way to build into the high school calendar, the master calendar, time for students who are interested in SAT, ACT support. I know in January we're talking about the budget, and my request is going in the opposite direction of finding cost savings. But this is something that personally I could, support and rally support around, just because, again, with just doing general education instruction, we're right there, right? Like we're right there underneath the state and national averages. So I see it as an opportunity if we invest strategically that our students can compete at, if not outperform those other students.
Agreed.
Questions? I have a couple questions. So I just want to make sure I understand this because there's some new information here for me. So the state is now paying for juniors and seniors to take the test? Like once a junior year and once their senior year? Is that what we're talking about?
Just one time, either their junior year or their senior year.
Okay, so of our 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, 12th graders this year, tell me exactly who took what test, grade by grade. 12th graders took?
So can we start at Lily? Can
Sure.
we start at bottom? Go up?
8th graders.
PSAT 8 was 8th graders. PSAT 9, 9th graders. PSAT 10 / NMSQT, I can't go back to the slides, was for our 10 11, and SAT 12. Did I get that right? they're
SNMET
backing it up.
10, 11, and 12.
So 10th graders take the PSAT
Yes.
test. It's like a pre-NMSQT
Right. And so what did
test.
11th graders take?
11th is the NMSQT PSAT test. That is the one that they can, if they score in the top 1%.
That's the national merit. Okay.
they
And then
can
all
qualify.
12th graders took the SAT. Okay, regular. Okay, that makes sense to me. I just wanted to clarify that. I appreciate that, and I also understand that we are looking at serious budget constraints. I also think that we have a lot of work to do here. Our scores are not getting better, right? They haven't ever been great, and they're not getting better. And I think we need to be real serious about that and real focused on it. And my theory, and I know this is mostly anecdotal, but I don't think that the STAR test matches up to the PSAT test. I think that the STAR test matches up to the STAR curriculum. And I think that that is the reason that we see schools that can afford to do it all across Texas subsidizing that education and that test prep for their students. We know of affluent school districts all throughout the I-35 corridor that do provide those test prep. And I think it's explicitly because the STAR test doesn't match, right? I don't think it matches content-wise. I don't think it's designed to match content-wise, and I don't think that it matches calendar-wise. So I think that we need to look from the middle school through the high school at some radical change, and both in the scheduling, the calendarization, and the content, because our kids are not able to compete when they get through the school. It's great that they're getting A's, they're getting B's, but if they're not getting into the colleges because they don't have the test scores, and furthermore, if they're not getting the scholarships that they're going to be eligible for based on those test scores, that's a big problem. And that then comes back to hurt us, not only by hurting our students, but it hurts our rating. So I don't think that we have a choice, honestly, but to do this. And I think we need to take a real hard look at it and get it fixed now. So,
I respond.
yeah.
So we're very fortunate at the high school. I don't know about middle schools. I'm new to the district, so I don't know what the schedules look at the middle school. But we have advisory. And so we use some of our advisory time for, tutoring of students, going to teachers, making up tests. We also use it as a time for students to have some extracurricular clubs that they can be a part of. But one of the greatest uses of our time in the future is to start doing some SAT prep and PSAT prep through that time. Also teaching of our teachers on the Tier 1 instruction and bringing SAT vocabulary into the classroom, every single classroom, all day, is going to make a big difference with our students and help them get prepared for that
I
test.
absolutely agree about the vocabulary parts. I think that Tier 1 instruction, I think, yes, when we get to that place, that it will help, but we are still struggling at that.
Absolutely.
And so I think we need to designate specific time in the curriculum, and I think that some of that might look like no longer having students serve as office aides, right? Maybe putting in some once-a-week period that students go to just for test prep. Like, it needs to be during the school day. It cannot be on Saturdays. It cannot be digital. We've seen that does not work for our students. They do not do the Khan Academy on their own. So I think that we've tried many of those systems, and they haven't worked yet, so we need to try something else. Mr. Arredondo. I see you, Ms. Kemp.
Just to echo Ms. Halsey's sentiment, I think investing in Tier 1 instruction, making sure that the vocabulary is there in the curriculum is great. I would also agree with Ms. Halsey. Personally, I understand that the intent of advisory in all of its iterations that I've seen, both as a board member and as a student who experienced 4 different variations of advisory and all of its well-intended ideas, I've yet to see it ever implemented with like fidelity, and the end product has always left a lot to be desired. And so I guess individually I'm concerned that if we say, okay, one of the menu of things that we're going to offer students during advisory is some type of test prep for SAT, ACT. as a young person, again, anecdotally, I can speak to like one, not prioritizing that as a student, right? Like if I get to choose, if I hang out with my peers on my phone during advisory, I was probably going to do that versus, man, maybe I should go to that SAT, ACT prep class that's optional in so-and-so's classroom. So I appreciate the problem solving and the ideas that are generated from this conversation, but similar to President Halsey, I would really like to see some type of proposal where it's like built in for students to go to, and not to say that it's compulsory, but something that's more systematized than it's a offering that if you know about it, if your parents care about it, or if you care about it enough, you're going to go to, right? Because we know what those kids look like who are going to go to that class and to that program, right? And they don't look like me, quite frankly. And so just something to chew on as we move forward and as we have these conversations. Again, I'm still kind of been out of shape that the majority of our community wanted to reduce the number of academic school days. So now it's beating the drum of prioritizing high achievement and academic advancement in our schools. And so thank you all.
I know Ms. Cantu has a question, but I also think it's about our ELA teachers and our math teachers have enough to do to get through the curriculums that they have to get through, right? And those are tested subjects that they have to get students ready for. And so I think that this preparation goes above and beyond in lots of ways, like the math, follows from year to year, but the SAT goes back and tests on all of that curriculum. And so to expect the calc teacher in junior year to be able to go back and cover all of those various parts of the various math classes, I just don't think that that's realistic. Ms. Cantu?
I'm wondering if there's any academic administrators that work already in the summer so that we wouldn't have to hire extra people to work, that they could come up with a plan of materials that can be placed in the classrooms so that they are adding or supplementing whatever their course subject is with a little bit of advanced material to give them that text prep, the test practice that they need. And we call it test prep.
Yes, ma'am. So aside from a standalone sort of outsourced program, our district curriculum specialists would be who would look at because they create that scope and sequence. They have all the standards laid out. So they would go in and make sure like we have our ALPS are in there, our college and career readiness standards. So that would be your staff tasked with making sure this was embedded from a tier 1 perspective in addition to any other concerted efforts outside of that.
Mr. Shanks?
I'd be interested to hear from the dais what the priority level of this is, because we have a lot of priorities that we've already put on the school district, the principals. So we need, from the dais, we need to set that, what is the priority for the SAT and the PSAT in our world, and then based off that priority, give them the opportunity to make solutions and a plan. So that's, I think we need to come up with a priority. How important is this? And I think it's important, so I'm not discounting that. But how important? What do they give up? Because that's going to be the question.
I absolutely agree, and I think that this is part of what we talked about doing at our budget workshop on January 6th, is that because we need to be real focused on that budget, that we have to prioritize, and so we've got to draw up that list there so that staff can do that. So.
Cool.
Anybody else? All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, President Halsey, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Cardona. This evening, I'm here to give you all an update on the strategic plan. You may recall last year, we engaged in some work with Region 13 around a strategic plan. It was a collaborative effort that focused on working with our campus staff, our district staff, our students, members of the community, and their families to develop a comprehensive plan that will serve as our North Star or our roadmap. What we came up with was something that was very powerful. So I would like to first just publicly thank everyone who participated. Those were some very intense meetings, many of them taking up to 6-7 hours at a time. And so we're very grateful for the work that was done. Without it, we couldn't be where we are here now. I am not coming here this evening to ask you to approve anything, but just to give you an update on where we are and the progress that we've made so far and where we're going into the new year. So this slide may look a lot different than what you saw before. And the reason being is after working with the various committees, we realized that the plan that had been created did not necessarily encompass all the different areas of school operations that are so important to student achievement. It's not just curriculum and instruction. There's so many different pieces that go into it, as you all know: budget, finance, school buses, getting the kids to school, feeding the kids. All of those pieces are so important. And what we realized when we looked at our strategic plan, the draft, was that all of those pieces were not explicitly stated in a way that a community member could look at and say, we understand why it's so important to have X number of buses, or why it's so important to make sure that the partnerships that we have, the impact they make on students, whether it's through industry-based certifications or what have you. So if you look at this particular graphic, this is a graphic that we have completely revamped. And we did not want to discard the work that stakeholders had contributed to. So what we did, we took some of the information and we were able to consolidate in some places. So I'll start at the top with academic excellence. If you look at academic excellence, it's at the top because ultimately that's why we exist, is to make sure that our students are performing well in school. So we had previously had different strands that took into consideration high quality instructional materials and effective instruction, which are two huge pieces when it comes to academic excellence. You can't have academic excellence if you have instructional materials that are not aligned to the standards, you have assessments that are not aligned. So instead of leaving those two strands separate, we have combined those into one, being the academic excellence. You'll also see talent people excellence. The talent people was previously referred to as human capital management, which is a more outdated term that does not refer to the existing use of talent in your organization and developing those people to be their best. You'll also notice finance and operational excellence and community and partnership excellence. All of those pieces come to us from, and I provided this to you tonight, it's grounded in the effective district framework model, which is something that II.A. uses as a way to provide us with research-based strategies in order to drive the operations of a district. This is in alignment to the effective schools framework model, which we have been using for a number of years. And so these four areas together will be what we will use to create a strategic plan that will have goals and strategies to be able to guide us into the future from 2025 through 2030. As a result of some of the modifications that we've made, we will be reconvening some of our committees together to be able to get more stakeholder input as to what are the goals and strategies that we need to focus on when it comes to talent and people excellence. We have to remember that we all come to our positions from different places, experiences, so it's very likely that someone who may not be inside of the education world may have a grasp on how to recruit and retain talent that we in education maybe we haven't thought of. So those will be the opportunities for those individuals to participate. So it's still going to be a collaborative driven process that will start in January with the reconvening of these stakeholder meetings. One of the things that we are hoping to be able to do is in the May or June board meeting to be able to bring this to you for final approval with the anticipated start date of the August 2025 school year, which will take us into 2030. Most strategic plans usually run the course of 5 years or so, and with revisions made as goals are met. But that is our hope. And again, this is something that we see as a way to drive continuous improvement in this district and make sure that what we're saying is actually written down somewhere. So as other people come, for those of who may not be here to see it come to fruition, we know that we do have a plan in place for the future. So this is the update I want to provide you guys, and I will certainly take any questions that you may have at this time.
Mr. Shanks?
I'd like to say I'm excited about this, coming from a university that we've had a strategic plan for 21 years that I've been there, that I've never seen any cohesion and fulfillment of it. But now we have a president that actually has a strategic plan, and all of the divisions and all of the departments are all focused at achieving that. It's amazing what you can do. So I'm excited to see this cohesive plan and how it works for all the schools.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders.
Thank you.
So we will, I think, as we just said also, the board will be meeting in January to discuss our priorities for the budget, which I think will also help to inform this process. So, thank you.
It's up there, but it's close over. It's the one I need up I can just read it from there. It's okay. Okay, and then when I pull it. Okay, sorry. Good evening, Board, President Halsey, Board of Trustees, Dr. Cardona. Tonight's operations update, we are going to have our partners, VOK Architects and Satterfield Ponticus, who's our contractor, bring to you all the design development for the high school. There is an action item later on this evening. This is a check-in point. We brought y'all schematic design. We're bringing y'all design development, and then the next step would be GMP. The guaranteed maximum price. There's two other action items, and those are to accept 2 of the bond projects from the 2023 bond. That's the site package 1 and the elementary school renovations. I do not have, if you can advance that next slide, please. This is not in your board book, but I did want to show y'all some photos. That's the Bonham Elementary, the new driveway. Of all the projects that we did, for me personally, that's probably one of my favorites, and it was probably the least expensive. But that was important because we had to get parents off of the shoulder on Highway 123. That was a huge safety item. But we got it accomplished. There were some photos of a parent pickup. And like I said, the community entrusted us to do a lot of good things with the 2023 bond, the high school project and auditorium, but this one right here was extremely important. We were also able to light the transportation annex. That's the picture on the right. Another safety item for our transportation folks. And then the picture on the left is De Zavala, additional parking and a new parent pickup loop for drop-off and pickup. And then, of course, a lot of the work was at Hernandez. Part of this package are the elementary school renovations with some HVAC work that we did at transportation at the support services building, but a majority of it done was at Hernandez. And those are some photos there of the hallway, the front desk, and the vestibule. Once again, a safety item, making sure that the individuals up front could see who was ringing the doorbell clearly, and this project accomplished that, as well as renovations to the gang restrooms, both boys and girls, new ceiling tiles and ceilings down the hallways with lighting, and then, of course, a picture of the conference room there. So like I said, those will be on the agenda tonight for approval of acceptance. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to VOK, and we're going to walk you through the design development for the high school project.
They have it. They have it in the board book.
The board book?
Yeah.
No?
While we're waiting for that, I will wish Ms. Lopez a happy birthday this month and let everybody know that we do have cookies up here.
We can sing
Um,
while we wait. Yes, we can sing while we ate. I agree. I
Welcome to get a
second that
cookie.
motion.
I'm just teasing.
We're going to table the singing till January, but do have a cookie. Happy birthday.
25, right? 26, okay. I was close. Right there.
Well, Andrew left. Mr. Sandoval, before the presentation begins, in response to the site package 1 and the elementary school renovations, is there any way that we can, and if this is Mr. Fernandez's wheelhouse, start amplifying the work that was done at the ball fields here at the high school, the new drive? I know we've announced those things just kind of as like a procedure, right? Like this thing's opening, the bottom drive's opening, but I think emphasizing and educating the community of what their tax dollars are being spent on and the end product is incredibly important, just to show them that, you know, the things that we promised are being delivered on time, and just their inherent benefit would be nice to see, so.
I just wrote that down on my note.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. So, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Cardona, my name is Julie Zitter. I'm with VLK Architects. I'm a principal there, and I'm happy to be here again tonight to present a design development update for you all. There are many folks besides me working on this project, so there's a few headshots there of our team. But here tonight with me is also our consultant partner for construction, Satterfield Ponticus, and we also have a slide for them just up here.
Good evening. My name is Triff Domi, and I'm the Director of Operations for Satterfield and Ponticus for our San Antonio office. This is some of the team that will also be involved in the project on the contracting side, working with VLK and Bernie and you guys.
And they'll be presenting a little bit later in this slide deck. So the agenda for tonight, we've got the design development presentation, including construction phasing that Triff will be highlighting, as well as some next steps. So as part of design development, it's basically a refinement of the design process. And I will say tonight, you're going to be seeing some things that are different than what you saw in August, which would further amplify some of the things that we've accommodated by way of improving on including the budget and better use of space and achieving the goals of the project. So you will see some, and I'll try to highlight those as we proceed. So quick way to orient ourselves is through the site plan. So obviously the colored blocks are the areas that we're touching, inclusive of the administration, the classrooms, and the fine arts. And all the things that are on the site are indicative of what's happening through the building expansion. So we are making improvements for flow, as well as accommodating the addition for the classroom and the fine arts. We're also even taking a look at the parking to support your other bond project with the natatorium, which is the red stripe that's highlighted at the top. And it turns out to also have the same contractor for both projects, so it's a great opportunity for us to collaborate uniquely for both of those bond projects. So proceeding on to the ground floor, this is the first floor. You're able to see the same highlights that you did last night, or excuse me, in August, of the areas that we're touching. And if you go to the next slide, we're going to hone in on the administration area. So you previously saw that we are staying in place on the administration. They're getting an improvement for the front entry space, the attendance functionality, but they're also getting a lot of new finishes regarding the flooring and the ceilings to better accommodate the flow there. We're also working with the adjacent spaces, which currently is your life skills area. So that entire section is going to be repurposed with in-school suspension and a new conference room back there. All the areas that are in purple are for the life schools, ADL and ACL respectively, and they're nicely coordinated next to each other. So yes, we did displace some classrooms to accommodate that, including a book room, but working hand in hand with the administration, the campus. Like I said, we targeted areas that weren't being fully utilized, and therefore giving new life to them and providing better adjacencies and flow, in addition to being close to the administration, the front of the house there. And moving on to the next slide, you're going to start to see that new classroom addition. This has really tightened down to what you saw previously in August. That was, again, to achieve the budget, but to also, again, just make good use of real estate. We're maximizing the site in that we're not needing to relocate any of the transformers that are currently out there except for the electrical panel. So that was also really thoughtful participation with all of our consultants and working along with your operations team for how we could achieve that. But we also are looking at how you can further add on to this in the future. So we're thinking beyond the time that we're working on the project. The next slide is just quickly the area for fine arts that's being updated. This hasn't changed really, it's just gotten more refined than last time. I will say a lot of these drawings don't really provide the work that's being done for the things that you can't see, i.e. mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. There's a lot of coordination that occurs, but you can't necessarily see it in these drawings. But just rest assured that that is being looked at part and parcel with your operations team so that it's fully aligned with the systems that are here, and they operationally, once we're gone, can take over and it'll be very seamless. But like you already know, a lot of these just basically are stair-stepping. Mariachi is moving into where orchestra was, orchestra is moving into choir, choir is moving down into band hall. So, and then as a result, in the next slide, you're going to see a brand new band hall to further accommodate those stair steps and a brand new black box. So these are all going to really help out your strong fine arts department. All right, well, moving on, we've got the second floor. So like I mentioned, we are doing a new classroom addition, which is not just first story, but also 2 stories. And like I meant, and go on to the next slide, you can see a better picture of that, which accommodates a strong circular flow around there with 2 stairwells on the north and south end. But like I said, you can clearly tack onto this as you need to for further expansion in the future. So just a quick axonometric, this just really helps orient you one more time outside of the site plan to see where those new additions are occurring. This will be really important through the construction phasing, which Triff will touch on later in the presentation. So you can orient yourselves and your students and the faculty, of course, for how they get around the site. So what a design development presentation can't happen without some great renderings. Last time we presented some exterior shots, but now we're getting into the interior so you can better understand what's going to happen in these spaces. This is your administration suite. It may not look too different than what it is currently. However, this is a brand new desk. This is also a new cut-in window. It's very similar to what you've achieved on some other campuses that Bernie just mentioned, so that they have a clear direct line of sight so that when people are coming in, they can see them and buzz them in respectively. But you also have the new attendance suite with check-in there, which is happening within the suite itself. And just where the woman with the bag is going, that takes you back out into the main building. Next rendering is of this new ACL, ADL suite. This is your life skills area. If you looked at the plan, you're able to see a lot of compartmentalization of those spaces. They require a lot of space to get around. This just happens to kind of showcase maybe some of the population that would be in there. But we're repurposing that former classroom space and creating more of those areas that are really in need. In meeting with those teams, it's heavily used and anticipated for at least 50 kids next year. So it is a growing population that does need some attention and therefore more space. Next slide highlights the new classroom addition. So this is what the new addition, it's basically mimicking what's currently in place on the campus, so more of the same brick. The vertical piece at the end there with the metal, that's the staircase. So again, this looks, we wanted to make look seamless, that it was there from the very beginning, working hand in hand with the contractor to fulfill that. Next few slides are highlighting the fine arts. So here's the brand new band hall, which is very similar to what the current band hall is like. We're trying to accommodate natural light in there as well, and is easily achievable because it's at the end of that sequence there. But what you're looking at is obviously a lot of the acoustics that go into play, so it's a very effective space. We've got a large screen there so that students can refer back to music. And we've been meeting with all of your users to help make sure that these spaces are designed the way they need to be for instruction. So again, what you're not seeing in some of these is a lot of the behind the scenes, the importance of the mechanical systems, so it creates the improved acoustics. We also have an acoustician on the project that's with our team. And we also have, of course, True North, who's been working with the campus, the district, with all of your IT needs. So a lot of work's gone into play that's maybe not necessarily seen, through the pretty renderings. The next couple of slides I think are really exciting because this is the brand new black box. And so what you're seeing in these two scenes is basically a new tension grid that's up in the ceiling, as well as these are mobile platforms that the students and the teacher can reorganize depending on what they want to present. The next slide is very similar, except that it has a stage in the middle, but it allows for optimal flexibility, and it really allows, yes, the kids to actually perform, but they actually get to start to learn how to work with the set. And if that is something that a career path that they want, this is something in a very safe way that they can fully accomplish that. So I think this is your little jewel here as part of the project as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Triff, and then I'll follow up with next steps.
So the next slide is really our plan to attack or build the buildings, and kind of what we looked at it holistically is, in order, we have so much integration with the existing spaces and with the kids, we really had to figure out how we can compress that time. So what we looked at first was obviously relocating the utilities this coming summer, and also attacking the admin, since there's not a lot of, really it's just finishes. So we're not having to do a lot of new construction, as in tearing walls down and adding new or HVAC systems. So Julie and her team have put together an early package that we're going to get the construction drawings here in January, and we're going to try to move forward with that. So come May, we can start phase one, which would be the relocations of the utilities, which is the items that are highlighted in yellow for this summer. We're also going to try to work that parking lot in on the north side. So that's what we're trying to do for this first summer. Then we would roll straight into what we consider, as we look at any project, what's the longest path? So what's going to take us the longest to finish in order to get to the end the fastest? So that was the addition of the black box and the band hall. So we're going to attack those next, and at a certain point we'll roll in the classrooms. And when we looked at it as a whole, it's 27 months, and you say 27 months, wow, that's a lot. But we needed the 9 months that we would realize through 3 summers for that integration aspect of it, because there's a lot of work also in what we call the special education portion that we've got to go in, and that's a complete gut almost of those spaces, we're relocating restrooms, some new HVAC systems, finishes throughout. So the whole 27 months, we needed that 9 to do that integration.
And then the final slide is just a few next steps. So we've got, so right now we're coming to you for design development presentation approval. And then like Triff, you can go to the next slide, thank you. Like Triff mentioned, we are fast and furiously buttoning up our construction documents, which would be inclusive of the administration suite and anything that has long lead times items associated with it, including all the utilities, so that we can get underground, move those things, get going onto the site plan, and then move forward with all the new construction part of it. And then the balance of our work will be coming up in May. And so there'll be 2 other times we come back to you. One would be for that first package for a GMP 1, and then followed by GMP 2, which would be the balance of the project. And then that would give them the full clear runway to get this work going. And then people start to see actual tangible things as early as this summer. So with that, if there's any questions that I or Triff can answer.
Ms. Kane.
I appreciate how you've made sure that we're looking at everybody who is going to be involved in these spaces, and I love hearing that everybody has been asked along the way, and this just looks amazing. My question might be beyond what you can answer right now, but I know there is some major concern about upcoming challenges in getting materials and possibly the cost of those materials. Do y'all have any idea if we're still going to be able to do a 27-month project in any sort of budget that we imagined?
You can. I'm going to just say quickly, the benefit that you all took was that you hired a construction manager at risk at the very beginning. And I know traditionally that hasn't been the district's path. It's always been hard bids. And so the beauty of having somebody along with us for the ride, is looking at those things back and forth. If you looked at my presentation from May to August to now, it's completely different because it helps tie back into the budget, which is why we've really taken a hard look with the district, how all these spaces are being utilized, underutilized, and making maximum use of what you currently own. Now you can.
Well, she nailed the first part because it's been the integration of, you know, us working with the design team, and we give them feedback on a price basis constantly as the drawings have developed. But to answer your second part of the question about the lead time of materials, well, when COVID hit, yes, it kind of pushed things out, but since then we've kind of realized how to play that game since the design, the early packages that they're coming out with, which include some of those things like the long lead time items like the HVAC systems, the electrical panels. Those are really what's pushed out the most. Steel's come back a little bit, so it's not as bad. It used to be roof insulation. That's not as bad. So really it's the mechanical systems and the electrical, but they've done a good job, her and her engineers, of getting those out and designing those first so we can kind of get those ordered sooner rather than later.
Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, President Halsey. This might be a question for ISD staff more. I know this was an exercise that was driven by campus administration. I guess my question is, can I understand more the thought process behind relocating ACL, you know, repurposing those 4 classrooms in this first hallway, all of that? Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, President Halsey and board members and Dr. Cardona. This is one of the very first things that I did when I came in on June 3rd, which was awesome. So in terms of, and there were already plans, right? Whenever I first started, I think one of the big things that we nixed from the very beginning was the addition onto the admin suite. Like there was a whole addition that wasn't needed. And so there was already plans to repurpose and move our ACL because, to be honest with you, the spaces that they're in right now they're not adequate. And they don't meet their needs. And so then we knew that we needed to move them. And then as a result of that, Ms. Brock has brought her expertise, and I'll let her speak on that piece of it. Was there one other thing? Was there something
really
else? It was just that whole
behind,
process?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll let you add to the ACL piece.
Good evening. My name is Deanna Brock. I am the Director of Special Ed. So some of the details around the space not being functional anymore, we have a lot of sensory needs. We have a lot of space requirements because of equipment that the students need. We have simply outgrown that space. So with the redesign and the renovations, we have ensured that our bathrooms have the appropriate changing space, because right now they do not. We know that we have students coming up in the next few years who will require additional space for that, whether it's equipment or just they have additional things that come with them that the current space does not support. We have included opportunities for them to participate with their activities of daily living, and so those are the pieces outside of their academics that we also support. So that might be helping with just daily functioning skills, you know, how to personal hygiene, cooking, safety. Our spaces that we have on campus right now are not adequate to fully support the full range of needs that we are trying to teach. So our new renovations capture that, and we're very excited.
Thank you.
I have one other question. I also, like Mr. Arredondo, appreciate the changes to Bonham. Great job, and I appreciate Mr. Arredondo's advocacy on that. I want to reinforce the need to fix the way that we enter and exit the high school during morning drop-off and exit. I don't see that being addressed here, and I will tell you, somebody who does it every day, it's still a circus. It works pretty well out here in the front because we have at least 3 staff people who are out there navigating it, but back over here, it's people weaving in and out, it's trying to do this zip merge, it's people, some people going this way, then cutting around, going this way, and still going back out the wrong way. Like, it's not good. So that has got to be solved in however we fix this. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add on to President Halsey's comments, I mean, just my experience here tonight, right? It looks like the administration has put barricades up to prevent folks from using the traffic circle as a traffic circle, which, one, I don't think we need a traffic circle, but it is what exists currently, right? So I'd much rather us have a conversation of like how to fix that versus this piecemeal leaving it up to the administration to kind of cobble together the way in which we want vehicular traffic to travel on site. So I understand that that might be a change order, that might come at additional cost, obviously, to reorientate how traffic goes around this campus. But again, like, you just look at the way in which we've partitioned off the drive as is to make it workable. I mean, even the visitor lot that's kind of adjacent to the administration wing, we never open up those swing doors. So why not just permanently partition them off, right? So it just makes more sense flow of traffic wise. But I don't know who y'all's traffic engineer is on VLK, but if they can, you know, weigh in on that process, it's never made sense to me. And I know as we've added on additions, I mean, you look at the way in which we enter, there's like that right turn into the parking lot, but you go 15 more feet and there's another right turn into that parking lot. I know we've cobbled together this site over the years, but if there was any way to make that make more sense, that would be great.
And to be safer.
Yeah.
We don't have a traffic engineer on this particular project. It's been more reacting to the existing conditions and making it safer for that. I know when we provided thought process for maybe dropping the kids off at the gym and pulling them back through this way, but I think from the administration side, it was harder to manage those kids versus just having them continue to come through the front door where there is a place that they can be safe and wait until the front doors open. And we have triaged with the city as well on the project, so they know it's coming in addition to the adjacent natatorium as well. So we've made plans to submit that as one site plan permit, so that will also expedite the review process for both projects.
So that means that the traffic plan will be forthcoming?
We'll look at it.
I mean, it's really, students get dropped off, picked up at both sides, like they mass exit out these doors and mass exit out those doors, and it's just, and I see staff out there trying to wrangle it, but it's just not, I mean, it's not working, so. You're invited to come. I'll be there tomorrow morning at 8:30 and then again at 4. Welcome to join me.
And I understand that the layout of this high school, I mean, it's different than any other campus, right? We don't have dual directional drives at any other ISD campus. It's always one way in, one way out. But here, again, I guess in theory, if all the gates were open, every drive is a two-way street, so to speak. And I think that lends itself to the confusion, right? That I can kind of go any which way that I want to find an exit to this site. And again, I think that just adds to the overall challenge. Like, I could come in through the front and go through the traffic circle and then go into the student lot. And is that the best way to get here? Probably not, because we want them to go where the little guard shack is, right? So again, I think that's a much larger conversation. Obviously not what we're talking about tonight, but seeing that we're putting in an additional $40–50 million on this site, I mean, there's no end in sight of trying to fix this traffic thing. When we opened the campus in 2007, I believe. So if we can accomplish that traffic issue, that would be great. Because like Ms. Halsey said, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to a safety issue, right? And so if just egress of the lot would make more sense, I think that would be great. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, it is now 7:15. I think we can probably move pretty quickly. So unless anybody needs a break, we'll keep going. Right. First up, we have the approval of the consent agenda items. The approval of the minutes for regular scheduled board meeting on November 18th and December 2nd. The consider approval of the policy adoption of FL local, and consider approval of the 2024-2025 budget amendments. Does anybody want to pull or questions?
I was going to motion to approve.
Motion made by Ms.
I'll
Arredondo.
second.
Seconded. Ms. Cantu?
Yes.
She second.
Second. Okay. Any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. That motion is 7-0. Items for action under the Board of Trustees. Consider the approval of the agreement to provide joint funding for the provision of youth services. As I said before, I think that we should approach this after having the full context of the next year's budget. So I'm going to make a motion that we move this item to the January meeting.
Second.
So,
Any questions, discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. That's 7-0. Human Resources, consider the approval for certification waiver for classroom teacher.
So the following is a class room waiver for one of our Spanish teachers who is tested a few times, is certified out of the country, however, still needs additional time to pass her TOEFL exam.
Mr. Arredondo?
I move that the board approve the certification waiver to the Commissioner of Education for the 2024-2025 school year as presented by the administration.
I second.
Motion made by Mr. Arredondo, seconded by Mr. Shanks. Any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, 7-0. And the next item is also Human Resources, consideration and approval of a class size waiver. Ms. Munoz, could you please explain that one to us?
So we had a mid-year resignation at our Travis Elementary campus, and based on that, the class was dispersed, and we do have two classes that are over the 22-to-1 ratio, one at 25 and one at 23, so we are asking for two class size waivers.
Okay, and Mr. Arredondo?
Oh, I was ready to make a motion. I move that the class size waivers be presented to the commissioner for the period stated in the application for the two classrooms as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Ms. Arredondo, seconded by Ms. Cantu. Any questions? I just want to make sure that that we are acknowledging that this is part of our attempts to cut some of our costs by attrition, right? This is one of the consequences of that priority. And I also think that when we talked about this previously in our agenda prep meeting, you did indicate that you had talked with campus leadership and are talking with the teachers about this, so that we are trying to do these things as unpleasant as they are, with as little effect on our classrooms and our students as possible, and also as much in concert with our faculty and staff as we can. So I appreciate that. Any other questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? That motion is 7-0. Next is the Communications Department. Consider the approval of the 2025-2026 school calendar, which we received. Mr. Fernandez.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I put the academic calendar on the dais for you with the updated changes. We'll have it on the screen here in a little bit. We can go over it really quickly. For employees, it's 186 days plus a trade day. So we're going back to the trade day program that we had a few years ago. And one reason being, just looking at the calendar, we didn't want to bring teachers back in July. And then feedback from staff was they didn't want to come back after Memorial Day. So that's why we included the trade day. To get to this draft, we went to our DEIC, and we also got feedback from our academics team and our principals. And so I'll go month by month. In July, it's a new teacher orientation, July 29th through the 31st. August 1st, all staff will return back to CISD. PD will take place the 4th through the 12th, and we'll designate days accordingly. The 13th will be the first day of school in CISD. September 1st is Labor Day. September 26th is Parent Community Day. It gives parents an opportunity to speak with their their teachers. And back to school nights will take place the week of August 4th through the 8th. October 11th, Indigenous Peoples Day is October 13th. October 10th would be a professional learning day for our staff. November 3rd, and so this aligns, our academics team, give us really good feedback. This aligns with our assessment calendar. So our staff will use those professional learning days to look at the students' data so they can go over their lesson plans for the next few weeks. November 3rd is Professional Learning Day. November 24th is a trade day. And so how we would get this trade day is, at the beginning of the year, we provide all teachers with online training that they have to do. And so every single year they have to do it regardless. And so what our plan with this trade day is give our employees, our teachers, the opportunity to finish that online learning and actually get paid for it this year in a sense, or in the program of a trade day. So it's about 6 to 8 hours of online training that we take. It covers sexual harassment, all those types of trainings that they have to do. So why not give them credit for that? And so that's how they would get that trade day hour early on in July, August. I guess that's a bad example to use, Mr. Shanks.
It's the same ones we take.
Right, yes, and the same ones we've been taking for years. Our winter break, December 22nd through January the 2nd. Staff would come back to a work day on January the 5th, and then January the 6th, it would be Professional Learning Day. Students would come back on January the 7th. January the 19th, it is MLK Day. February 9th would be a Professional Learning Day. February 16th would be a district holiday. March 9th through the 13th would be spring break, but again, this is pending. The recommendation is to align our spring break with Texas State, with our new partnership with dual enrollment and hopefully additional programs that we will implement this coming school year. We feel like it's in the best interest of the district to continue our alignment with Texas State. April the 3rd would be a district holiday. April the 24th is a Professional Learning Day, and this is when CISD and San Marcos High School host the state VACE competition. So we have thousands of people on campus, and so that's why we've made that a Professional Learning Day in years past. May the 21st would be the last day of school. It's crazy to think about the last day of school in May of 2026, right? And then May the 22nd would be Professional Learning Day / Work Day. So we would probably change that to Professional Learning Day, and the reason why is San Marcos High School, that would be their graduation. And so, of course, we would want our staff to work graduation here at San Marcos High School. and that would be the last day in CISD. So that is equivalent to 170 student days and 186 plus a trade day for employees. This provides us 5 extra school days to work with at the elementary level and 3 extra days at the middle school and high school level. So implement weather, anything tragic happen in our community, we have extra days, again, 5 extra days in elementary, 3 extra days in middle school and high school. And that is the academic calendar draft for next school year.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. As I said to Mr. Fernandez and to Dr. Cardona earlier, I really appreciate the committee revising this, and I think this looks good. However, I'm going to ask the board to also table this action until January, because it's my understanding that Texas State might be changing and finalizing their calendar to potentially include some sort of fall break. So we would need to be mindful of that, especially with our early college high school program. And I also think that we might have an opportunity to work with Texas State to try to agree to have our spring break aligned to the spring break of UT and the other ISDs in the I-35 corridor, which would help to address some of the concerns that were brought up previously. So if we could all be in alignment, that would be great. So I'm hoping that if we just wait until January, then y'all can get together with the Texas State folks and make that happen.
Yes, and like I disclosed earlier, just with the fall break, of course, all of us would enjoy a fall break, but we would have to make up those minutes somewhere, somehow. So if we were to take a fall break, for example, Lockhart, and that's the constant feedback I get. Lockhart does a fall break, they do, but they go to school a week later. They dismiss for the summer a week later. So we could take a fall break if the board prefers. It's either come back a week earlier in August or go after Memorial Day. So those are just things to consider.
And maybe it's not the full week, right? Maybe it's part of the week, but I think that we just need a little bit more time to try to make sure that we are all in concert. So is there other input from the board concerning that calendar that we can give staff now? Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, President Halsey. I just wanted to provide feedback. I know in the original draft calendar, it showed professional learning for that week and some change prior to the start of school. All professional learning, I do appreciate that based on community feedback provided to Superintendent Cardona, that 2 of those days are now staff work days to allow staff to get their classrooms set up or do whatever they need to do on their own time, because I know those PL days are pretty jam-packed when they have to be in professional learning. So I just wanted to commend and give kudos to staff for being flexible on that. So thank you.
And I think the trade day too is a great idea. What? I don't think we need a motion just to table. We're just going to table it. So unless anybody really wants to vote on this tonight, it doesn't seem that we need to. We were going to table this to January. Thank you. Okay, our next item is to consider and possibly act on accepting the site package of the 2023 bond project. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Made by Mr. Arredondo, seconded by Ms. Kane. Any questions?
I just want to say these things have made a huge difference in the schools that they're at, which I know you said, but I've been to each of these campuses, and 123 being clear at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is amazing and obviously so much safer. You can actually park at De Zavala now. I don't know how many of you go there on a regular basis, but it was impossible. And I have spoken with the administration at Hernandez, who have said multiple times how wonderful it is that when someone's approaching the building, they can actually see what's happening. In fact, you often get buzzed in before you get all the way to the door because they can see that clearly who's coming up. So thank you for your work.
All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? That carries 7-0. Next is to consider and possibly act on the architect's proposed design development for the 2023 Bond High School additions and renovations project.
I move that we approve the design development proposed by the project architect.
Motion made by Ms. Kane, seconded by Mr. Shanks. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? That motion also carries. Great job, everybody. And third, consider and possibly act to accept the elementary school's renovations for the 2023 bond project.
I so move.
Moved by Mr. Shanks.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Arredondo. Any questions? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you very much. Great work. Next up is procurement, to discuss and possibly act on regarding the approval of bid CSP MD 2024-02 for the upgrade and replacement of digital marquees on existing facilities, including possible delegation of authority to the superintendent or designee to finalize any agreement. Mr. Alvarez, could you please explain to us what that means?
Yes, absolutely. Back in September, we put an invitation for bid to either replace or upgrade marquees at every single campus within the district. We did result in one bid offer that was provided to us, and upon review, we are recommending on the administration that Mega LED is the bid, that the bid be accepted by the board.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Seconded by Ms. Lopez. Any questions on replacement of all the marquees? And this will be at every campus, correct?
Yes, ma'am, we should be touching every campus.
Mr. Arredondo?
Yes, I just wanted clarification or additional information. Are these going to have the opportunity to be like centralized when it comes to messaging? Are they all site-specific?
It's, yes, should be centralized.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cantu, did you have a question?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm good.
All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Thank you very much, everybody. With that, I will accept
I
a
would like
motion
to
to
make a
adjourn.
motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn made by Mr. Shanks, made by Mr. Arredondo. Thanks, everybody. Happy holidays. Be safe. Enjoy your break. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
32.
XI.C is out or what?
From this one, I figured, well, we did lose